Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into one of the most mysterious and honestly one of the most powerful hidden gems in the U.S. Constitution, the Ninth Amendment.
So, let's just jump right in with a big question, one that really gets to the heart of this whole thing. What if the very act of writing down your rights could somehow end up limiting your freedom? I know, it sounds like a total paradox, but that's the exact problem the Ninth Amendment was created to solve.
All right, so let's properly introduce this thing. It's often called the forgotten right, but you're about to see how this one, short, powerful, and often overlooked sentence packs a serious constitutional punch.
You know, you ask anyone on the street, and they can probably name the First Amendment, right? Freedom of speech, or maybe the Second. But the Ninth? It's kind of the silent hero of the Bill of Rights. It works in the background, acting like this critical safety net for all the other essential freedoms that didn't make it into the final draft.
To really get why the Ninth Amendment even exists, we got to rewind the clock a bit. The framers of the Constitution, they were facing a huge philosophical problem when they sat down to write the Bill of Rights.
And this was it. This was the core of their dilemma. Some of the founders were really worried. They were like, wait a minute, if we make a list of rights, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, what if some future government comes along and says, well, if it's not on the list, you don't have that right? I mean, you can just feel the tightrope they were walking. On one hand, you list the rights, and you might accidentally shrink the very definition of freedom. But on the other hand, you don't list them, and you could be leaving the door wide open for the government to just do whatever it wants. It was a classic catch-22.
So what do? Well, what they came up with was, honestly, it was genius. Incredibly simple, clever, and just really elegant.
And there it is. That's the exact text. It's basically a rule book for how to read the Constitution. It's telling all future courts and all future governments, hey, just because we wrote some rights down, it doesn't mean you can ignore all the other rights that people naturally have.
So what this all boils down to is a concept that lawyers call unenumerated rights. It sounds like a fancy term, but the idea is super simple. These are the fundamental rights that you have just by being a person, not because some government wrote them down on a piece of paper.
Let me give you a really easy way to think about it. Imagine you make a shopping list. You write down milk and eggs. Those are your priorities. But that list doesn't mean you're forbidden from buying butter if you realize you need it, right? The Bill of Rights is that list, and the Ninth Amendment is basically the rule that says, yeah, you can still buy the butter. Okay, so that's the history. But you might be thinking, that was the 1790s. Does this thing actually do anything today? And the answer is, oh yeah, big time. It is echoed through history, and it's still right at the center of some major legal fights.
This is where the Ninth Amendment really gets its modern teeth. And, this is also where things get controversial. Think about the right to privacy. You can read the Constitution front to back. The words right to privacy aren't in there. So where does it come from? Well, the Ninth Amendment is a huge part of that argument, suggesting it's one of those fundamental unwritten rights that people have.
You can actually trace this like a legal chain reaction through some of the biggest Supreme Court cases. It starts with that core principle, protecting the rights that aren't written down. Then, boom, you get a case like Griswold v. Connecticut, where the court uses that very idea to help establish a right to privacy. And that single step, linking the Ninth to privacy, well, that laid the groundwork for some of the most monumental decisions that followed, including Roe v. Wade.
Okay, so let's bring all of this home. What does this historical text, this old amendment, really mean for you right now in your life today?
If you remember just one thing from all this, please make it this. The Ninth Amendment affirms a core, radical idea of American liberty. Your rights are not gifts from the government that they can just take away. They are inherent. They exist before any government, and the government's job is just to protect them, not to create them.
So let's just sum it all up. The Ninth Amendment is a powerful shield for your natural rights. It's a stop sign for the government, telling it where its power ends. And maybe its greatest strength is that it's so broad, so open-ended, which guarantees it will always be a vital part of our ongoing conversation about what it really means to be free.
And that leaves us with a final and pretty provocative thought. The Ninth Amendment is basically a declaration that our rights are vast, that they can't be contained on a single list. So the question for every generation is, what are those rights? What does freedom look like today? And what other fundamental freedoms do you believe are protected by this short, powerful, and absolutely essential amendment?